So welcome everyone to the breakout to learn more about the extractor role. Your facilitators today will be Dave Schaefer from District 5960 in Zone 29 and myself, I'm Laura Carey from District 6580 in Zone 30. Now in this breakout, we will be covering the following concepts. 1, setting the club members up for effective responses. 2, techniques for extracting the responses, and 3, topics to be extracted. We're going to set the stage right now. In both in-person and virtual club visioning, it is important to know your physical setup, as well as prepare the participants' minds for how you want the extraction process to evolve. Let's first talk about setting up their minds, and secondly, about setting up the physical environment. First of all, the mindset. You will have 6 slides to help you create the mindset you want the participants to have in order to do effective extraction. We will be going over these slides as if you were presenting, and we'll add in a few more comments. So our mental time travel. Both in-person and virtual, you set them up to use past tense verbs. You will say, Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. We asked you to dream your club's future in the writing exercise. This process helps your club to manage changes as your club grows. As we ask for your ideas, please use action verbs in the past tense, such as we completed, we raised, we achieved, we started, and those are just a few examples. If virtual, at this point we will do a poll to have an interaction since they've been listening to a PowerPoint presentation for a while. Now, since today we are in a breakout session ourselves, we're unable to do a poll. So I'm going to read the poll to you. As I completed the writing exercise, I thought about our club in 3 years. 1, our club is doing amazing things and will continue for 3 years. 2, our club is doing well and has room to improve in 3 years. And 3, our club has lots of room to improve in 3 years. And then we'll wait for the poll results. Now, please be patient because we have to wait for everyone to respond and answer the poll. Once the poll results have finished, then the results will pop up and you can read the results to the group. Dave, over to you.
Thanks, Laura. So the next slide you'll be presenting is what your club can become. Now with this slide, you can prepare them to project themselves into the future. You say, we asked you to try to place yourself 3 years into the future, looking back at what you accomplished, seeing your club as it has become 3 years from now. We use this perspective so you resist the urge to say, hey, we can do that, or we can try that, or we can add that. But you really want to have them say, it's 3 years from now, and this is what we've accomplished, all that we have dreamed. Next slide is the writing exercise. Whether you're on site or virtual, you'll ask them to get out their writing exercise. Now, if you're virtual, you might say something like, if you don't have your completed copy of your writing exercise, please go get it now. Or if you have a digital copy, please bring it up now. You will need to reference that for this next step. Next slide is extraction. Now, this is where you need to prepare them to be brief. What you can say is on the slide under notes. Say something like, we are going to start working through this writing exercise and get all of your ideas captured. I will give you the category, which will be extracted, and the scribe or scribes will be recording your ideas. Keep in mind that we are looking for concise but accurate information to post. If we don't have your idea up here correctly, it's going to be difficult for others to vote on it. And when we get to that point, so please make sure your idea is captured accurately. And also think about being a headline writer. You have written your ideas maybe in a long paragraph, but for purposes of posting, you want to put that paragraph into a short phrase or headline or bullet or tweet, or I like to say 6 words or less. Now, we're going to be asking all of you for your ideas. Finally, don't worry about the detail of your ideas right now. We need to get the broad idea captured. We can sort out the details later. Now, if you're in person, you'd be saying, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Make sure you speak up so that our scribes, who will have their backs to you, can hear your answers. Now, if you're in a virtual session, you'd say, please raise your hands in the react function and I will call on you to unmute and respond with your ideas. And don't forget to remute when you're done. You may also write your ideas in the chat room. Laura?
Thank you, Dave. So before we go to the next slide, give me some ideas of what you think a headline or a bullet point might be. So please raise your hand. I'll call on you to unmute and give me what you feel is a bullet point. Kathy, please unmute.
We sent 20 students to RILA.
Okay, thank you. Carla, please unmute.
We increased our overall membership by 30%.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, everyone, for participating. So here's a few examples of what bullet points or tweets might be. Say something like, under increase our ability to adapt. Fun club, started a satellite. Expand our reach, 50% male, 50% female. New brand shirts purchased. Under enhanced participant engagement, new members did service project. 50% graduated from Rotary Leadership Institute. Now notice, I said Rotary Leadership Institute, not RLI. We want to stay away from acronyms as much as possible. The next one is increase our impact. 10 new park benches provided. 2 water wells in Malawi installed. So let's talk about what the physical environment of extracting looks like. A physical setup for an in-person will be in a U shape. You can see each person raising his or her hand quite easily. You tell them you will call on them so everyone won't be talking at once. If several people raise their hand, you simply say, first we will go to John, then Susie, then Mike. You have acknowledged the person whose hand is up and given them an order in which to respond. Now be sure it's very important to remember that order. Likewise, on a virtual venue, you will have a full screen of participants. It is important for you to have a good control of the Zoom room as well. You do the same thing to keep order as in person. You say something like, our first category is increase our ability to adapt. Let's hear your ideas in an orderly way. So please raise your hand and I will call on you to unmute and respond. If you have several raised hands, you do the same thing as in person. You simply say, first we will call on John, then Susie, then Mike. You may also add that they may put their ideas in the chat, but always encourage verbal participation. Dave, back to you.
Thanks, Laura. I'd like to spend a little time sharing some extraction techniques that I think we found to work well. So first, repetition. Repeating what the person says has 2 purposes. Oh, so let me check. What do you think those 2 purposes are? Who wants to share? Raise your hand in the react function and I'll call on you to unmute and respond. Carla?
It was still up from the last time.
Okay. Kathy?
It helps make sure that the extractor and the scribe understood what the person said.
Okay. Thank you. Who else? Anyone else? Okay, let me just share what I think the two reasons are that you'd want to do that. First of all, it really gives the scribe time to accurately write down the idea. And second, and importantly, is it gives a chance to manage the pace in which ideas get captured. So you can slow it up along the way if you need to make sure your scribes have enough time. Now, sometimes when you get an idea, you get a really long sentence and you need to get it into a concise bottom line. For example, someone might have said, we changed our fundraiser to a golf tournament after doing an art auction for 8 years and raised $10,000. Okay, now you as the extractor can say, golf tournament, $10,000. Okay, another tip on shaping behavior. Immediately you need to start shaping the group behavior in two ways. First of all, if they use past tense verbs, correct them as you recite as stated in response. For instance, someone might say, we are going to build a playground in the park. You say, built a playground in the park. So change the present tense of build to the past tense of built. If you do that several times, they'll catch on and continue to use the past tense. And second, if someone just yells out his or her idea, just gently remind them that you'll call on him or her to respond with their idea when it is his or her turn. You need to really keep control of the room so there is not chaos, especially in the virtual venue. Another technique, order of speaking. Again, I want to reiterate, when you have several hands raised, just put them in order. Say like, I'm excited to see all the hands raised. Let's have Judy, then Sam, then Jane. But then, the trick really is to remember the order, then ask for more ideas. When the ideas start to wane, then move on to the next topic. Another tip about reading the chat. If you're doing virtual, it's important not only to have participants raise their hands, but also to acknowledge the ideas that have been put in chat. So it's really good to assign a team member who is not the scribe to help read the chat and at least alert the extractor that someone has put an idea into the chat. When reading the chat, say the person's first name and then the response. If the response needs to be briefer or corrected to past tense, do it before the scribe gets it on the list. The scribe will often just copy and paste, but still needs to be read out loud. The best practice we found is for the person assigned to read the chat, state the response before the scribe writes it on the list. Because if the scribe copies and pastes, if they do that and there's not the right tense on it, have them at least change it to the past tense. Decide before the session begins if the team will have a separate person reading the chat or if a separate person will just alert the extractor to the ideas in the chat. Another technique as you're doing virtual is watching for raised hands. On the virtual venue, the same team member who reads or alerts an idea in a chat can also look for raised hands for the extractor. So when a pause occurs, just let the extractor know that a hand or hands are raised. It's best to let the extractor call on the person or the participants. It is tempting to call on the person yourself, but let the extractor control the Zoom rooms as the ideas are extracted. When in person, once you see a hand raised, invite the person to share their idea with an open hand, palms up, and do not point at the person. Laura.
Thanks, Dave. So the writing exercise was designed using the Rotary's action plans for strategic priorities. I'm going to put a list in the chat. And what I would like you to do by just typing in the numbers. You don't have to type in everything that's in the chat on which of these 6 are the 4 priorities. So I'm going to repeat them, but as I'm doing that, take a moment and put your answers in the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all you have to do. So increase our ability to adapt, give to the foundation, expand our reach, develop creative fundraising ideas, enhance participant engagement, increase our impact. Go ahead and put your answers in the chat just by putting in the numbers. Okay, thank you for participating. It's actually 1, increase our ability to adapt. 3, expand our reach. 5, enhance participant engagement. And 6, increase our impact. So as I stated, the writing exercise was designed using the Rotary Action Plan, which has 4 strategic priorities, which are the first 4 extraction areas that I mentioned. There are several questions that you will be asked under each of the 4 priorities. So let me read them to you right now so you get a better idea. Under the first one, under increase our ability to adapt, the questions are: 1, because of the vision we pursued, our club is known for the following. 2, because we embraced flexibility and changed our club to be more relevant to our membership and to our community. Our club now. Next is expand our reach. 1, because of our determination to grow our club size, we now have blank number of members. 2, because of our efforts, our club attributes are now. 3, because of our attention to public image, we increased awareness of Rotary in our community by. And under enhance participant engagement, 1, because of our attraction to engaging our members, we. 2, because we provided the following leadership development and skills training, we. And lastly, increase our impact. 1, because we valued serving our community, we took part in the following. 2, because we're an international service club, we also. Dave, back to you.
Thanks, Laura. So when we're doing voting, the participants do not vote for each question. They vote for the ideas within a Rotary priority, which may have 2 or 3 questions within it. After we've extracted for all these priorities, then we add fundraising and foundation. For fundraising, you will just want them to name the name of the fundraiser and the amount they've raised. For instance, held a scavenger hunt, raised $5,000. They might put it in 2 sentences or so. Again, try to get into a bottom line with just a name and an amount. For a foundation, some items might need explanation. Someone might say, hey, 100% E-Ray. Well, if you have some newer members, they may not understand E-Ray. So when asked, turn to the group and have them explain it. If no one answers, then you can tell them. Now, keep in mind, a Rotary Foundation reference document was sent with the writing exercise prior to the event. Okay, technique on blending ideas. It's best to put everybody's ideas up unless it sounds the same. If it sounds the same as another idea, it's already been put up there, then just ask the person if it is the same or if they want the idea put up as is. Abide by what that person says. Most usually they will allow you to blend it with another idea. Another technique, ideas moving to different categories for voting. Sometimes there will be an idea you may think may go in a different voting category. For instance, someone might say, let's have an Instagram account for club members under increase our ability to adapt. Now, that might better be a public image idea under expand our reach. So after all the extraction is done, ask them if they want to keep it under the ability to adapt or to put it under expand our reach, and abide by what they say. Okay, we've covered some of the things as we've been presenting along the way. Let's stop and see if there's any questions to this point. Just raise your hand in the react function and we'll call on you. Any questions?
Well, Dave, okay, now we're going to have some fun because now we're going to practice. So we are, again, going to practice on the virtual venue. We are not going to have a scribe today. We just want you to practice extracting. I can call on each one of you and give you a sentence to extract from one of the areas. I will put the writing exercise, actually, Dave will put the writing exercise in the chat, so you will download it if you need that in front of you. The rest of us, we're going to just make up answers on the fly. Remember, even on a true visioning event and extracting, there are no bad ideas, and it's always a good idea to remind people there are no bad ideas, so they will not be worried about talking. Maybe they'll be shy. So before I call on anybody, do we have someone who actually wants to start this process out? Okay, Dana, you look like you're ready to go. Unmute yourself if you would, and you'll be our first. So, are you ready?
Ready as I'm going to be.
Okay. So, under increase our ability to adapt, here's your question. Because of the vision we pursued, our club is known for the following. So that's what I want you to ask our group and extract the ideas from them. Are you ready?
I guess so. I haven't done Extractor before, so.
Okay.
So you just ask an idea of what they have done to adapt?
Dana, what you do is you ask that question. This is exactly the process for extracting. So you ask the group. So because of the vision we pursued, our club is known for the following, and we want them to give us the answers. So we'll give you an example. Dave, I'm asking you this question. Because of the vision we pursued, our club is known for the following.
We're known as the Fun Community Group.
Okay. That's all it is, Dana.
Okay.
Okay.
Carla, because of the vision that you've pursued, how are you perceived in your community?
We're known as being the club that's always there when they're needed.
Great. Let's see. Carol, because of the vision that your club has pursued, how are you known or perceived in the community?
Small but mighty in accomplishing our goals.
Great, great. I gotta find the other people here. Okay, John, can you tell us what you've done in your community that you've adapted your ability and how you're perceived?
In our community, we've adapted to being more and more present and visible by giving Paul Harris Awards to nonprofit leaders.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you. Do you want me to do you got the rest of you or?
One more. Let's do one more. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't. Oh, Kathy. Because of the way your club is adapted in your community, what are you known for?
We're known for recognizing other leaders in our community and highlighting them.
Great. There's similarities between your responses.
Okay. Let's go on to another one. And
Dana, just one observation.
Okay.
You did a nice job, Dana. If this is your first time extracting, nice job. One of the things I would encourage you to do is to repeat what the person has, because that repeating it provides two things. One is to make sure that you've got the idea, and the second gives the scribe another chance to hear it.
Okay.
So it's good to do that if they're, when it states the idea of fun community service organization, that you repeat that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
You did a
Dave.
nice job, though.
Okay, we'll go on to another one. So who is going to be our next participant? Kathy, you're unmuted. There you go. Thank you for volunteering. Okay, now, also remember we are in a virtual world right now. So you may want to open your participant function and your chat function. Remember, they can also put their response in chat, and just in case you miss someone's hand, you can see their hand on the participants function, right? Okay, so Kathy, here is under expand our reach. Because of our efforts, our club attributes are now.
Okay. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, I will. Okay, this is under expand our reach.
Okay.
Okay, so because of our efforts, our club attributes are now.
Okay. We expanded our reach and our club attributes are now. I'd like to call on Dave, please. You expanded your reach. What are your club attributes that allowed that to happen?
We're inclusive.
Thank you. You're inclusive. That's a great answer. Thank you. Dana, what about your club? You expanded your reach. What are the club attributes now?
We have combined other clubs in our immediate area as a joint committee.
Oh, by combining area clubs for joint committees. That's great. Thank you. Okay, I'm trying to monitor this. Laura.
Well, we always have a fun time.
Okay, so they always have a fun time, which every club finds that important. Thank you. Okay, we've expanded our reach in your club. What are your club attributes now that allow that to happen? Carol?
We've expanded our reach by including volunteers in certain projects that they enjoy.
Also, if you include volunteers and projects they're passionate about, that's great. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Carla, in chat, she mentions their attributes for expanding their reach is they started a satellite club of younger members.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. And Carla, when you can unmute and do the extracting, just let us know. Okay, no problem. Okay, Dave, would you like to give any comments to Kathy?
Kathy, you've done this before, haven't you?
I've not been an extractor. I've watched many extractors in action. I've always been the scribe.
Okay.
And sometimes with extractors, I've had to slow them down and go, what was that? I didn't get that, or it was too long. So yeah, I haven't ever been an extractor, but I'm doing this so I can understand extractors better.
So you understand the importance of repeating back the thing.
Definitely.
You did a nice job on that. One of the things that
and I noticed sometimes during, we've only done in-person visioning that it started going too fast. And so sometimes it has to be the scribe that says, whoa, everybody breaks.
Yeah. The other thing I encourage, and as you get into the virtual environment, I don't know if you know, I had my hand raised. And so you're going to, maybe we should all practice this. So everyone go to raise your hand so that we know how to raise it. Now, if you have participants, do you all have participants open? Notice how all the hands come up. Yeah. Okay, now as soon as someone puts their hand down, they go off the list, they go down the list. And
okay.
So that's a good way if you're extracting. One little tip is you can see who's raised their hand by keeping your participants open over on the side.
That's why I would insist on having helpers.
And that's also an important role. We talked about that other person that could be privately chatting to you. So you didn't want to have your chat open so that you can kind of see, okay, it's Laura, then Carol.
Mm-hmm. And do not be afraid to lean on your fellow facilitators. Dave and I lean on one another quite often to make sure the flow is there. And if we miss someone with their raised hand or someone in a chat, just ask, Dave, did I miss anyone in the chat or did I miss a raised hand? And that's a nice flow to make sure that you haven't missed anyone. And it's just remember, it's teamwork. Another thing to remember, and do not worry about someone, you always have someone that talks in long sentences. My mind is headlines, 6 words or less, that's my thought process. However, that's not always the case. So don't be afraid to say, I hear a lot of really good ideas here, but could you shorten it and just give me 6 words or less? And they will. So sometimes you just have to remind them. And if they hear that enough, someone will finally catch on. But don't be afraid because like you've said, you've been a scribe and you know how quickly things can run amok. And so, as the extractor, you are the person that controls the tempo during this idea exchange. So Carla's back in the room. So Carla, since you're back in the room, we're going to get you while we can. Are you ready?
I am, I guess.
Okay. Well, we're going to throw you a curveball here. So we're going to go under fundraising. So, but because we had the following fundraisers that raised the amount of money, tell us the name of the fundraiser and the dollar amounts raised.
All right. Because we've had a fundraiser, somebody let me know the name of the fundraiser that you used and the amount of money that you raised. Who wants to be the first one? Raise your hand. All right. Dave has a hand up. Dave, did you mean to have a hand up?
Polar plunge, 10,000.
Sounds great. Polar plunge for $10,000. Very good. And I think, Kathy, you have your hand up next. Kathy, what'd y'all do?
Cranium crush, $20,000.
Cranium crush for $20,000. That one sounds interesting and a little bit scary, I think.
Trivia.
Dana, what'd y'all do? Yeah. Dana, what'd y'all do at your club?
A wine tasting and sale for $55,000.
A little more sedate. Wine tasting and sales for $50,000. That was productive. I think whenever you break out the wine, that's always a good thing. Opens up the purse strings. Carol, you've been kind of quiet out there. What have y'all done?
We've done.
Make sure
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Virtual fundraisers, local speakeasy, and we only raised 5,000, but it was no one could gather, so.
So a virtual speakeasy for $5,000, and I think every dollar counts. So I think that's fantastic, and you're dipping into that virtual realm, which is something new for, I think, all of us. So that's great. That's a great job, everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Carla. Dave, would you like to give us some pointers this time?
Again, I think, Carla, you've done this before. No?
Not in this format. I do this for work.
Okay, well, you do a nice job. I particularly love the way you called on Carol, as she has been quiet. You know, I think that's always good. You have the quiet ones there, but you also have the vocal ones. And Laura, maybe you want to touch on what you do with the vocal ones.
Well, you know, you've got two different venues. You have one virtual and you have one in person. If it's virtual and say Dave was talking all the time and Dave wanted to share every single thought in his mind with the whole group. As much as we appreciate that, what you can also say is, Dave, we really appreciate everything you're sharing with us, but we'd like to hear from Carol. We haven't heard from Carol for a while. And Carol, please go ahead. Or whoever had their hand up so you can steer everything away from Dave because Dave wants to share everything. Now in person, what you might do is you could walk up to, remember you're in a U shape, you could walk up to the participant who loves to tell us everything on their mind and maybe put your hand down on the desk. Remember, we don't point, we put our hand out and say, you know, thank you so much for sharing. And I know you're very excited about this whole process. But we'd like to hear from some other people. And then start calling on some other people because I can assure you other people have had their hand up. So those are just some simple ways to divert attention away from someone who loves to give us his ideas or her ideas without embarrassing them and without basically asking them to be quiet. So those are just a few little tidbits there. You know, Carol, we haven't heard from you yet, so we would love to hear from you on our next question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go. So let's look at this one. And on this one, we want to hear from every single person. And you call on each person for this because this is under Expand Our Reach. So because of our determination to grow our club size, we now have blank number of members. So Carol, what I want you to do is I want you to call on all of us, and all of us will give you a number, a membership number, even if it's the same. Everyone needs to participate in this one.
Okay. Because we worked on our membership development and expanded our reach, what number, Kathy, has your club reached?
We have reached 60 members.
Oh, congratulations. 60 members. Carla, what number has your club reached?
We're at 37 now. It's a new club.
Okay, thank you. 37. Dave, what number has your club reached?
36.
36. Okay. Dana, what number has your club reached?
We're at 65.
Okay, 65, Dana. Thank you. And John, what number has your club reached?
We're sitting at 69.
Okay, 69. Thank you.
Okay, Carol, thank you very much. Dave, would you like to give us some insight on Carol?
I think, Carol, you did a nice job on calling on each of us along the way. I think you might want to experience what hand raising is like. So do you have your participant window open?
I do.
Okay. So would Carla, would you raise your hand? And then Carol, could you call on her then?
Carla, yes. And I'm asking Carla to share about her number.
Right. An idea about it. Let's just say an attribute about the club.
Okay, Carla, thank you for raising your hand. If you can share an attribute about your club, please.
We're very service project driven and eager to be in our community.
Thank you. So the service club committed and eager to be in their community. Thank you, Carla.
Very good. Very good. You played it back to Carla, and you now the scribe can get that down. So nice job.
And Kathy has her hand up as well.
Okay, Kathy, what attribute would you like to share about your club?
We are now known for our focus on youth.
Oh, so Kathy's club is known on their focus for youth. Thank you.
Okay, very nice, everyone. So Dave, any thoughts?
Carol, you're ready. You're getting it down. You're asking the questions. You're identifying raised hands, and you're calling on them. I think you're a little practice. You'll be ready.
Okay, thank you.
Here is an observation, and this is something that everyone has to watch, and including Dave and myself. So when you're extracting, and Carla, you give me an idea, and I say, "Oh, great job, Carla, love that." And then Dana, you give me an idea, and you don't say anything. You just go on. Now, they're all great ideas. But possibly, since I didn't say that was great to Dana, she might think, well, if mine isn't so great, I'm not going to say anything anymore. So this is something that you have to really think about. But instead of saying great idea, good job, just say thank you and then move on. And even though you don't mean to maybe exclude someone's idea, it's perceived, they could perceive that. So just say thank you and move on very simply. And that's something that most extractors have to pay attention to as well. So what questions do you have for us? You all did a very nice job. Any questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment.
Yes,
I
Kathy.
gain more insight on the job of the extractor. That'll help our team become a little more well-oiled.
Mhm.
So thank you.
You're welcome. It does help to understand as many of the roles, if not all the roles possible, to really understand how it flows. Mm-hmm. And as I said earlier, the extractor is really the person that will control the room, control the Zoom. And if you have someone that just does not realize that their mindset needs to be in the future, so they built this, they did this, and they want to stay in the present, just simply say, oh, you built this playground equipment. Say it back to them, but with a past tense verb, and they will understand that. And as a scribe, if the extractor misses that, you could come back and say, I see that you built this instead of you're building. You built it. So it is a process that everyone is important within this process. So what would you do if you were in person, let's do in person first, and had a disruptive group or a disruptive person? What would you do? What do you think you would do? Carol, any thoughts?
I think if I had a disruptive person, I would certainly ask them for their idea, or if they had any comment, I would include them. Mm-hmm. And then I would encourage them by saying, let's hear from someone else to share their ideas. try and keep them involved, but include others.
Okay, thank you. Carla, your hand is up, if you would, please.
Physically, if I were in the room with them, I'd approach them. I'd get closer. I'd hold my hand out. I'd lay my hand on the table. I'd ask in a calmer voice, to what their question or what their answer is, repeat back to them, and then standing there, move over to someone else or ask someone else something so that I'm still in that person's space a little bit, but then directing the question and the answer back to someone away from that person.
Okay, thank you. Dave, what would you do?
I think those are both very good answers in terms of what to do. The one thing to keep in mind is if you're the extractor is you're not alone. You've got a team leader that's supposed to be watching as this goes on and can help along the way. I've had the opportunity to go pull someone aside from a session as a team leader to say, hey, could you tone it down a little bit? We want to make sure we hear all the contributions of other people. So keep in mind that there are others that can help support you, or you can also lean to your team leader and say, Dave, do you have something that we can contribute to this along the way?
Hmm. And virtually, what you could do, now remember, your team, you're going to have a tech host in your virtual team. So you could privately chat to your tech host. Would you please mute? Kathy, we're going to mute you. Okay. So would you please mute them? And, maybe they left their microphone on, and that, as we all know, is disruptive. And so that's another way you can do that. Just remember you're a team. I had an experience once, one of the clubs that I did in person, we had a very weak lead facilitator. And this club had 3 very strong type A personality past district governors that were best friends. So they wanted to sit together and did, and talked the entire time. And since our lead wasn't that strong, I had to walk over to them and put my hand down, Carla, similar to what you said. And I just basically said, guys, we're losing people here because you're talking. Please stop. Mm-hmm. And what we learned from that is in the future, when we dealt with the club liaison, we asked the club liaison to make out the tent cards in advance, know who your participants are, and put the friends away from one another, put the talkers possibly with someone who is more shy. And then that way, again, you are controlling that room. What other questions do you have? Any other questions?
And this can be on any part of the visioning process.
Absolutely. We've done a few.
Do you feel like the virtual is going to continue even when clubs are starting to come together and we can go back to doing the in-person?
So this is Dave. In District 5960, we have done 12 virtual sessions. And we sent out a survey afterwards. And one of the last questions on this, first question is, did you find this beneficial? And 93% found it highly beneficial. So we had 7% that were neutral. So we know virtual works. At the last question, we asked, would you prefer on-site or virtual? And right now it's about 55% prefer virtual over the on-site. So I think as we get to a point where we start to open up and have on-site, we're going to provide that as an option. Now, in some districts are really large districts geographically. If you have to travel 2 hours to go to facilitate a session, that's going to be difficult for some of the big districts. So virtual, I think, is around to stay.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think that as well, Dave. One way or another, it is an option that will be out there. And I think eventually, not right at the moment, but eventually we will have a hybrid virtual method as well. We're just trying to get everything updated with virtual and then everything updated with the new material in person. So, any other questions? Do you feel more comfortable now with extraction? You're never alone, just remember that. And if you've made a mistake, probably they don't know it. So smile and continue. What they don't know, they don't know. Well, Dave, if no one has any other questions, we've been on for 60 minutes, and I think we can thank them for participating and making sure that you're going to do everything you can to help your club and your district be successful in the future. So thank you, everyone, for participating today. And always remember that you can find so many of these materials on the website, and which we showed that earlier. You can get on the open site, the public site, if you are not a coordinator or a district chair, and you can still see so many of the different things that are available for you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this and you'll enjoy your next session.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye.